anyway, I had to go to county lockup 30 days, and I got out, and my friends, like any good military friend should do, said, you want to like pay rent or get food? No, let's throw a party and invite whores and have a gangbang. Yes. All right, recording is started. Yeah, so obviously, like I told you, we lost all of our shit with you previously.
Whoa, hold on. You didn't say the thing Ken always says.
Doesn't he have a thing to add that in later?
I guess. What? Fuck Ken.
That's the new intro. Fuck Ken. I don't know. What is he? He's like, welcome back to Four for the Road, everybody. I'm your host.
Punk Rock.
Yeah, I'm Ken. But no, we lost all of. I think we had what 2 or 3 previous episodes with you, and we lost them all due to technical difficulties, I guess. So I want to start over.
Yeah, for sure.
And then NoShame. NoShame is the actual guy. What's that?
Said I got notes, man.
I got beer.
I wish I could drink. I got to go to work after this, but no, I wanted to try to be super prepared for this podcast and give you the best version of myself.
That's awfully generous.
That's why
we don't give ourselves the best versions of ourselves.
That's why we brought you. NoShame is the best. NoShame is the talent at the Four for the Road podcast.
It's good to know somebody has it.
Hey! I believe, not to my own horn, I was one of the highest rated Fast Life podcast guests. So thank you.
Yeah, you're good. Let's see if you can run it back though. Everybody can have like a good podcast, but what can you do it consistently? That's where it's going to be fun.
The sequel is never good unless you're Top Gun.
Is your studio in the Dallas area?
Yeah, we're just south of Dallas by about 20 miles. So
okay, I'm gonna be in that area in April-ish. March, April timeframe. So if you want, give me a chance. I could fucking beat the shit out of Dave's ratings.
What are you going to Texas for?
Well, my life now. I just kind of travel around the country and do whatever. So that just happens to be a spot.
People think I got it good with remote work and shit like that. Dude, whatever you're doing, that's the train they need to get on.
Can't complain, man. It's nice. 85 degrees today here in Florida. And then I leave right when the hurricanes come.
Dude, so Taylor Sheridan is coming to Texas, and he's coming to where you live to do a new show, right?
I believe so. I think you told me about that, right?
Yeah. I saw it on Google or some shit.
They have already been filming quite a bit around us. Like there's a town like maybe 10 miles away from us, but it's like one of the next towns over. You know what I mean? Because we're kind of rural where I live. He's been filming some of the Yellowstone episodes there, and then they filmed a lot of. I think they're filming a lot of all this shit around Dallas, even some of the 1923 stuff or whatever. So, I don't know. Texas
he likes to put like actual real people in his episodes, so you let him know you're available.
I'm not a cowboy, dude.
Hang on, you set it up. But on a steel horse, you ride.
And how many bikers are on Sons of Anarchy? You don't got to be a cowboy.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, so starting from the top, we lost all of our Jace episodes. I want to start over. So what are you doing for, I don't know if I'm in order of the notes, but what are you doing for 2023? Tell people what's on the Fast Life plate or Jace's plate for 2023.
Try to retire. No, man, honestly, I have a lot of things that I want to try to get better at this year. And, obviously the podcast, the Fast Life podcast is going pretty well for me. It's been doing well for the last year and a half financially, to where I can like almost kind of make a living off doing it. But I feel like I'm at that cusp where I'm at the top of almost to the top of the hill where it's like I need a little bit more free time to put more effort into it to kind of push it over the hill, if you will. And so I'm in the process of trying to figure out how to balance 2 essential careers like paint and podcasting.
Are you dialing back some of your paint this year?
I'm trying. I mean, I'm also trying to financially get into a certain spot. So podcasting can cover my livelihood, but it can't cover my livelihood writing, traveling to do podcasts and whatnot. You know what I mean? So I still have to paint, but I don't necessarily want to stop painting. I just want to, like, I would rather not paint bikes anymore for myself. I'd rather like come where I'm at now here in Oklahoma and paint bikes for this company, because they do all the shit that I don't want to do, like wet sanding and polishing and just all that. And I just got to come and do artwork. So finding a way to stay in practice, because I don't want to lose, any kind of skills or fall behind, if you will. But I definitely don't. If I want the podcast and all these other areas to grow and get to where I think they could be, I need more time, and I'm not going to stop riding the way that I ride and traveling. So it's going to have to be paint. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I don't want to jump around too much, but like sticking with like the podcast stuff for a minute. Are you branching out and doing some new stuff this year? I know you mentioned maybe looking at video or vlogs or something, travel videos and things like that. Is that something that's on the table for 23?
Yeah. I mean, it's been on the table for about 4 years now. And I just, when I do a podcast, and let me try to preface this real quick. When I do a podcast and then I go back and I guess air quotes edit it, I just skim through it, like, okay, make sure the volume sounds good everywhere, and then I upload it, right? I don't go back and listen to every fucking dumb shit all the stupid shit I said, right? Because then if I did, I'd probably never put it out. I'd be so self-conscious of, who did I offend, or what did I say, or is it going to be taken the wrong way, kind of shit. So when you're doing videos and you're trying to more or less get into that space of vlog, or even if it's just behind the scenes of the shop and the podcast, when you edit those videos, you literally watch those clips like 40 fucking times while you're trying to edit it and chop it up right and put it together and see how it flows. So you become more or at least I become more self-conscious of how I'm speaking, what I'm saying. Does this make any fucking sense? So I just get in my head a lot, right? And that's kind of why it's been hard to go through with the whole video stuff, but that's the plan. I'm trying to push through that.
I imagine it's got to be, well, first of all, if people don't know, you ride to some fucking amazing places where a vlog or video descriptions of that shit like that would be awesome to see. Like you're going on the ride with Jace. I guess that sounds kind of fucking corny, but that's kind of the idea. And, obviously, tons of people in the industry. And so having that type of stuff and, some of the parties that you go to, the, just the T-Bar Tuesdays and things like that. I think there's a market for people that would be interested in, but I imagine, like you just said, that's going to be hard as fuck to edit and put together, because you're trying to see, I guess, not just what's appealing to you, but what are other people going to be wanting to see on a trip like that, and editing it all together. And then, I mean, I look at like what Two-Lane Life does.
Yeah.
I was like, God, that's got to be fucking hard. I mean, I guess once you have it down, but that's got to be intimidating.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you got guys like that pumping out their kind of content, then basically it's like, I don't think that we need any more of that. They do so well at what they're doing. Like, I don't need to do that. You know what I mean? If you want to see how great it is to ride through, Zion National Park, they got a good video. There's no point in me doing one of those videos, right? I want to try to show what I uniquely have that's different than everybody else. And you kind of touched on it. It's like the way and where I get to be at, like how I get to live my life as a custom painter, a podcaster, and all that shit. So I have a unique, at least I feel like I have a unique perspective on things. And I just want to show that. As far as like me going down the road with the GoPro on the front of my helmet, looking at shit, that's not interesting to me. And if it's not interesting to me, I don't know how I could ever put that out as like my brand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now, don't be wrong. Like, I'm a hypocrite as fuck, because I'm going to probably do a couple of those like that just to kind of get it out there and produce some kind of content. But what I really want to show is something different. And I think I have a handle on it, but in my head it's there, but I don't know how badass it's going to be once it's all, put together, if you will.
Yeah, and I don't want to. I don't know what your plans are, and I certainly don't want to like spill any cats out of the bags on accidents or anything like that. But I think you touched on the vlogs for things like painting, or some of the industry stuff that you get to be a part of. I think there's a market for that. I think that shit will turn out cool, and be excited to see that and whatnot. Especially, I think for me anyway. Probably nobody's like into the same shit I'm into, but I like to see how people work. Like, it's not boring to me because like I suck at pretty much everything but beating my own dick off. So, to see somebody that's got talent and to see how they do it, photography, painting, bike building, whatever somebody enjoys, that shit's interesting to me. But editing that and coming up with the creative ideas to lead it, that's got to be stressful. Something I would love to see, and I would put it all on NoShame because he's the talented one at 4 for the Road, the ability for us to somehow be able to bring motorcycle club content to the internet that's not fucking cheesy. And when you start looking at the politics of it, and the patches that get along or don't get along, the areas, and not giving away trades, all the stuff that goes into motorcycle club considerations, it becomes a very hard thing to do. But if I could throw it at anybody to do, NoShame could get it done. But I just don't know if I don't know if that's a lane we could ever get into, but I think it'd be cool to get into.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea, but you're kind of dealing in a market that's, it's prized on I wouldn't call it secrecy, but being in the know, if you will. Like,
I think people would be so bored. Like, if you saw day-to-day life of an MC member, lose your fucking mind with boredom. It's not everything that Hollywood makes it out to be.
Well, not even Hollywood, but what about like all the other YouTubers that make those videos, like kind of like almost like the Hollywood news of the motorcycle club world, where they're like, or it's almost like TMZ, right? It's kind of what it feels like. It's a TMZ chasing any kind of thing they've heard about any kind of 1% club out there. And, you just feel like, man, like that, I don't know, like that seems to be the only thing that interests public on motorcycle clubs is the edginess of it, if you will.
So I think it'd be far more interesting to get like a bird's eye view of one of the parties that you guys throw, or, like some of the events that you guys put on, where it's like more of a community based thing, less focus on the clubs. Maybe clubs are there, maybe they're not, but just showing how the community as a whole functions. Maybe like if you could take what was that stupid ass documentary they did with the ice cream men? If you could do somewhere in between the ice cream men from Hell documentary and what fucking Lance and those guys do over at 2 Lane Life, somewhere in the middle, that'd be fucking money.
Yeah.
Well, to I guess just to throw your club on the spot a little bit, there's that series, not series, but there's these clips of videos where, some old heads are kind of sitting around the garage and telling stories and stuff like that. I think if there was, that's not going to be interesting to everybody, but a way to have more of those and get that kind of stuff shared and preserved for future generations. The same way, to me, again, I think it'd be interesting to see Jace's behind the scenes stuff, because you're not going to get the club flavor per se, but you're going to see artistry, you're going to see different industry things. So I think people are quick to, that's not interesting, I'm not going to pay attention to it. But what's the value to it 10 to 15 years, down the road? And that's something I might just be a fucking nerd about and think that's cool. But I'm like, man, if we had this shit documented, clubs, motorcycle rides, artists, builders, whatever, I think there should be more. I know there's a market for that, but I think there should be more of that.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be definitely nice to have more of it. But like I said, and I guess you guys know this as well, it's like I know club guys in Texas that have amazing stories, but there's just too much club wrapped up in it, so it can't be told. At least it can't be told to a non-patch member kind of thing. So it's kind of like, man, like how do you like really capitalize on some of that world and some of these amazing stories? It's almost like you need someone to infiltrate the club and snitch on everybody, or someone to get kicked out. Like it's always something like that you actually get like an insight into this world. And, and that's kind of like, it's just the way it's designed. I mean, it's always going to, I feel like it's by design, it's never going to be able to be done any other way.
It's like a Navy SEALs book. Every time a Navy SEALs book comes out, it's like, that's now an outcast Navy SEAL. And it's the same way in the MC world. You know, when the moment a book comes out, it's like that guy's out bad now. So yeah, you're right. It is a difficult line to walk. You know, to be able to provide insight, but also not say too much. Even though it's like, how many secrets are there really left? But at the same time, like, I guess there are still some things that you don't talk about.
Yeah, and there's so many things that, like, you know, it just, I mean, I don't even know how to really say it, but it's like there's just so much that goes on. There's so much history, especially with the older clubs, that, you know, even normal MCs, you know what I mean, don't really want to share too much of their shit, you know, for some reason. And that's just why I've stayed away from it, because there's no story for me to tell there. There's nothing I can do with my podcast to benefit that world, you know?
And I think, and I get it. I really get it for the guys that are for the road that are in clubs. You know, it's harder for them because you have to walk such a line to make sure that something you say doesn't reflect poorly on your club or doesn't offend another person or cause an issue or whatever. And so I definitely get that consideration. But like you just said, there's people out there with amazing stories, and some of them are being captured, but not at the rate they should be. I think there's just such, in any walk of life, I don't care what you're doing, I think there's just amazing stories out there. And that's what I geek the fuck out about. Like, I'm not in a club right now. I don't know if I'll ever go back to a club. But the thing that I love the most about the community is the stories. Like, that's what club you're from, where you're from. You know, I give that the proper respect and consideration. But the individual telling the story, that's the shit that I love.
Yeah, I mean, well, at the same time, I mean, stories are everywhere, man. You know, so, and you know this as well as I do. It's like, you know, if you're out riding bikes, you're traveling, you're meeting people, you're just living a motorcyclist life, whether it be club or civilian or however the fuck it's put, you're going to have stories, and you're going to be living stories and making stories. And in that, you're going to be fucking meeting people that have badass stories. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things to it where I wish that, you know, like I had an invite to go talk, and I'm still planning on doing this. I just don't know when. Invite to go talk to some of the El Forastero guys up there in Sioux City. And I fucking want to. I mean, these guys are like, there's custom motorcycles attached to this brand of club, right? And so, but even then, like, I still don't have enough information. I don't know enough to be the, I don't know enough about everything to have that conversation or help them through their, you know what I mean? So like when you do a podcast, you know, you don't just say, hey man, I heard you have a cool story, so tell it to me. You know what I mean? It's like there's, you take a 15-minute story and then you find little nooks and crannies in there that they might skim over, and you get them to go into it more. And that's how you take that 15-minute story and turn it into an hour and a half. Right.
And that would be a podcast I would love to see somebody get. And if you were able to get that, I think that's an awesome platform to have it on with just your abilities and videos and things like that. And your knowledge of the bike world. But yeah, like I said, they're so ingrained in the history of motorcycle culture. Don't even put, you know, obviously they're very respected as a club and very legendary as a club, but just ignore that for a second. Their impact on the motorcycle scene in general, I mean, their fingertips are in so much of what we think about in the 60s and what we think about for the 70s and into the nows, and how it's influenced that and everything. That's just such a cool story. I mean, even the what's the word? The conception, the founding of Easy Rider has ties to the magazine has ties to their club. Like, that's just one small portion of it. That's just fucking cool.
I got a question for you guys. And like I said, I listened to the podcast the other day when y'all had the I guess the debate or whatever. And I know we don't have to go down that road again, but I did have this question that it came up. When you guys think about clubs yourself, like what makes you so attracted to it, the era, you know what I mean? Is there a specific era? Like, I really, you know, am drawn to the club life of what it looked like it was in the 80s, 90s, 70s, 60s. You know what I'm saying? Because obviously there's a big shift in the whole culture in mid 70s. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you think? Do you think all the shit from like 75 to, you know, 2000s is kind of like, because I feel like that's probably the worst time of clubs. You know what I'm saying? It seemed more like it, you know what I mean? And then before, it's like all these old videos of, you know, Sonny and Tom Fugel and everybody riding and having fun and just kind of like being, wild. You know what I mean? Like that looks fun to me. But then you get to when they start fucking really fighting and, shit like that, where it's like that's not appealing to me at all. You know what I'm saying? So I wonder what is for certain people, and obviously we won't get everybody's opinion on it, but what attracts them to it? You know what I mean? Like, is it the old shit or that shit, or is it some new resurgence of it now that, it's not really public unless you're in it,
I guess I'll go and then NoShame can go, but like, okay, so to break it up a little bit, like if I was going to say what's my favorite era that I always look back with a fondness, I think like from and it kind of crosses a few eras or changes, but I think from like the 20s and 30s, where it was really kind of growing and then into, because I mean, there was such a huge production of Indian and Harley-Davidson for World War I and an implementation of the motorcycle and things like that. And coming home from World War I, the racing picks up and all that stuff. And really there was a time in the very late we'll call it teens, that, motorcycle racing, board tracks, things like that was like Super Bowl style. I mean, like that's what you would compare it to back then as far as audiences and things like that. And I think that would have been just such a cool era to witness. And then the growth post World War I into World War II. And then, you see not only the influx of Harleys and it's easier to come by and transportation and things like that, but now people are learning how to make money off of motorcycles. So, you have GIs that came back from World War II. They decided they were from Chicago. They're like, fuck it, I'm not going back to Chicago. It's cold. I'm going to stay in California. They ride around on their motorcycle with their bomber jacket from the military, and they're delivering parts and scripts and all this other stuff for Hollywood. Hollywood used to employ motorcycle riders to take like different documents, contracts, scripts, pictures, all this stuff back and forth on their campuses or to different studios and things like that. And club guys would get these jobs, and that's what they do. They'd ride their motorcycles for a Hollywood company during the day, and then they'd hang out with their club brothers at night or whatever. That to me just sounds, I'm already kind of really enamored by the 40s and the 50s, like just that, I don't even know what you want to call mid-century America, like the atomic age. And like, I think about like Indiana Jones when he gets the bomb-proof refrigerator and like the atomic bomb goes off and shit. Like just that whole era, I think, is just something that I've always been nostalgic about. So I think that would be a cool era to see clubs, how they operated in that era, in the 40s and the 50s. Drifter talks a really great thing on some of the other podcasts about the culture shift from that more, like you say, not that there's not parties and all that kind of stuff, but just kind of that more, everybody got along with everybody and we're racing and we're doing this stuff, to what he calls a little bit more of a gangster era and stuff like that, which whether you like it or not, that's something that happened. Clubs got involved in beefs and things like that. And, it was able to make, and not that they weren't before, but it was just made more headlines in the 70s and the 80s, obviously, and things like that.
Yeah.
What keeps me attracted now is obviously the history, the old stories. I love that shit. But I really think that for guys that are involved in clubs now, you're seeing a lot of them try to bring some of that old stuff and combine it with the new stuff. And the racing's making a comeback. Flat tracks, oval track racing, bagger racing leagues, all that kind of stuff. Clubs having drag teams and things like that. They've had drag teams for a long time, but now we're seeing more clubs or club members, get into this sort of thing and carry on the tradition and stuff like that. In the age of social media, modern media, I guess, you're probably always going to hear about the fight first.
Yeah.
That's sexier than the guy that two different clubs got together and they were banging handlebars on a dirt track somewhere, running a quarter-mile oval. That's just not going to sell to the general public like two dudes banging it out in a strip club. So it's kind of the age of information is a blessing and a curse. But I really think if people that aren't involved in clubs really dug down deep, there's a lot more than they might suspect of the good stuff going on. It's just not going to be what's in your face. The negative is always going to be in your face in anything. But so, yeah, the old era is that's the era that I kind of like, the 40s and the 50s, the 30s, all that stuff. And what I still love today is the dudes that are passionate about something. I don't care what the fuck it is. If you're passionate about something, like I want to hear about it. And that's the shit that I love about the motorcycle community today.
Yeah.
NoShame?
For me, I think if it was to, so you're asking which era of club life would I like to most be a part of? I would probably say it's a toss up between like mid to late 50s and then going into the 60s. More along lines because that was kind of like the formative era of like what we're dealing with now as far as clubs. Like people were, and maybe it's not the formative era as Dave defines it because he has all these eras defined, but I'm just going to call it the formative era. But that's when you started seeing the emergences of things the way that they're organized now. They were slightly different back then, but it all kind of morphed and melded into the building blocks of where we are. The life changed, and there was a lot of shifts in that time frame, going from like these racing clubs more to like the family dynamic and like the tight-knit clubs that we're dealing with now. So that era holds like a little piece of my heart as far as just interest and liking like the historical aspects of it. But I also am really kind of grateful to be in a club now, and maybe like 5 years earlier. If I could have just like rewound the clock and started like 5 years earlier. But living now, it's like we're kind of dealing with this resurgence of certain trends that used to happen. Kind of Dave alluded to it a little bit, like you're seeing a lot more clubs participating in flat track racing and things of that nature. Clubs that were like traditionally non-AMA are now participating a lot more in AMA sponsored activities, as well as races that are put on by other organizations. But then you're also seeing things it's kind of weird to say. Like you said, sometimes you gotta kind of watch the way you talk about things being in a club. So this is what I'm struggling with live on the spot. Last year we talked about it on a podcast where there was this like palpable sense that the community was headed to where it was like late 80s, early 90s, as far as like the violence and like shit like that went. Like it just felt like all the pieces were in play, and like if somebody pulled the wrong Jenga piece, the whole thing was going to come tumbling down. And somehow we like made it through, and we're here, and everything's still standing, and like all of our worst fears at that time like didn't come to fruition. Now that's not to say we're like out of the woods yet, but there are it's just this weird thing where we're able to re-navigate things that were from a past era. And I think we're able to like look at lessons of the past and kind of put them into perspective now. So to be a part of that and to have a hand in like making sure things turn out the right way is kind of exciting for me. And I think a lot of that's due to the whole like social media aspect of it. Cause even though there are those dickheads out here that are like the ambulance chasers, they want to highlight all the negative things in club life. That's so few and far between. And now you get a chance to see like real righteous dudes. Like you got like Northern Cody's got a huge following on TikTok and like Instagram and all that stuff. And he's like a solid, well-respected guy putting out like really good content that highlights all the other shit that happens in a club. You've got what's the podcast from your buddies up there where you live, Dave? Fuck.
Oh, Biker's Lifestyle.
I mean, they're highlighting the same kind of shit. Not to like toot our own horn, but toot toot. Like we're out here like highlighting the good shit, and so people have options. It's not like that singular point of information like it was back in the day where you're getting a newspaper that's painting clubs as dickheads all the time. You got all these different sources now today that can tell you about all the different things clubs are doing, and they can tell you about all the shit clubs are doing wrong. So maybe somebody wants to go that other route like we were talking about on that last episode. Well, anybody who's like really thought this through, they can give you that perspective, and you can make that decision on your own instead of like wandering into this half blind and then like finding out that it's not really what you thought it was cut out to be. So 50s, 60s, but then I'm also like really excited to be involved in what's going on right now, because I do feel like we're in the middle of kind of like a transition and a shift, and things want to go a bad way, but there's enough of us keeping things in a good direction that we can make a positive impact.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, because is there a sense of ownership amongst like current members to bring it back to a heyday, or at least a more positive, like less stressful, and I'm just speaking all out of context because I don't know, anything, just what the ambulance chasers tell me, you know what I mean? But I mean, is there a sense of like, I want to take this back or move this in a better direction, so you get a little bit of ownership amongst all the current members of these clubs and stuff?
For me, there definitely is. I mean, I have a huge sense of pride in what we do in the page, and then I also have a huge sense of pride in how I reflect on the community and how I represent my club and myself, things like that. I just to and there's like a lot of people out there that do it too, and there's a lot of people that have these new ideas that maybe are challenging the norms and shit like that. And then I'm beefing with one on TikTok right now. This guy's got all these differing opinions. He just happens to be a dickhead. But there's a bunch of people that are bringing a mix of what this old guard like look at, and this respect and regard for history and tradition, and they're kind of like blending it with some of the new ways of doing things. And I think it's a really exciting time to be in a club. But I also think that, like what you're saying, like you have to have people that that are stewards of it, good stewards of it, that can take all the new things that are coming, adjust all the old protocols and old traditions accordingly without losing our identity as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's been because I'm not in the club, so I always have an outsider looking in, but I feel that that's a valuable place to be and a valuable opinion, because the outsider looking in is who's going to join your club. That's who's going to be the future of your club. And something that I've noticed is I think there's more folks that are more club guys that are taking ownership of the community. What I mean by that is, yes, my club forever and all that stuff. They care about their club first, but they're at least thinking about or cognizant of the larger community as a whole and their little part in how they can make it better. And I come back to guys on 4 for the Road and NoShame because he's on this podcast with us, but they are great examples, and there's tons out there, and there's tons, and there's guys like that in every club. But again, I use NoShame as the example because he's right in front of me, and he has that loyalty and that love to his club, but he has that loyalty and love. I'm not going to say on an equal value, but an understanded value to the community as a whole, and the response, like Jay said, the responsibility that carries to try and make it better. And I think that, again, the guys banging it out in the bar are always going to make the TV shows, but the guys like NoShame and those that are having those same values, there's more of those out there than I think that the general public is aware of. And I think those guys are going to be a positive influence going forward as clubs move forward. Mm-hmm. Y'all playing flashlight tag out there? The fuck's
you can probably hear my dogs. My wife just, jeez, I don't know if this is going to stay in the episode or not.
Yeah, it is.
There's something outside. My wife just jumped over the patio railing and she's like freaking the fuck out.
It's Florida, dude. It's probably a fucking python or an alligator or some shit.
You guys keep going. I gotta take care of this.
Dude, come back with the alligator.
Let me in. There's something out there.
Goddamn panther.
So kind of talking about responsibility and club stuff. What about you? You as a figure, what is it? A figure face? Kind of you are a brand, a recognizable brand. You are a part of an influential part of the industry. Do you feel responsibility in your podcast or anything like that to steer things in a certain direction?
Yeah.
To steer things in a certain direction, or are you thinking about that when you're putting out content?
No, I mean, well, yes and no. So when I started doing all this shit with the podcast, I never thought it could do any of that, right? That was brought to my attention by other friends and whatnot. And then, ultimately, like everything that I have my hands in, whether it's a podcast, a camp out, bike nights, everything is just about, it's kind of selfish. It's like, I'm just building the shit that I want to do. You know what I mean? But I know everybody else wants it too, and nobody else is doing it, so I'll fucking do it. You know what I mean? When it comes to, the influence or whatnot, like, I don't know how much I have, honestly. I just think that I think that I built things that give people the opportunity to show off multiple ways, whether it's their brand, their personality, their bike. You know what I mean? We have a camp out that we try to get people to ride to that I think can hopefully show them how to travel on bikes, or how to get out, how to be uncomfortable, how to grow and shit like that. Our podcast is kind of there to exploit, guys like yourself and many other people, and exploit their ideas and their upbringings, their talents, their skills, their opinions and shit like that. So I don't know that it's anything. I think it's just the things that I've, kind of created to give people the opportunity. You know what I mean? Yeah,
absolutely. And so, like, stick with the camp out and how that's evolved and become, such a really big thing in the bike community in general. I think there's club guys that go to the Fast Life camp out that know, or, they know about it, whether they go and represent the club or just go as an individual. There's people that are making an effort in their schedule to go to that. There's regular bike riders that are coming from Massachusetts or Wisconsin or whatever, and they're making the pilgrimage down to attend this event because they heard how awesome it is and stuff like that. Do you think there's a chance that it grows too big over what you kind of initially envisioned, or is it, the bigger the better because it's more inclusive, or how do you feel about it?
It's already way bigger than I ever thought it was going to be, and it's not what it was when we started, right? But I'm not mad at that. It's turned into something a lot bigger. It doesn't quite have that intimate feeling it did when there was 50 people there. Now there's 1,000 people, but it's turned into something else. It's just as badass. It's just different. You know what I mean? So, what I've come to love about it is when it's like the week of, and you start getting tagged online, and these guys are starting to link up all over the country and make friends. They don't even know these dudes. They're like, hey, I'm going to the camp out. I'm in fucking West Virginia, and then somebody from Boston's already coming through, and these people link up, and when they link up, they tend to click up at the camp out as well, and they do everything together, and they become fucking friends. That now they got fucking close friends that don't live in their state or their city anymore, and I've seen it happen so many times, and that's rewarding as fuck. I mean, it sounds gay as hell to say, but it's
no, I get it.
Basically, I've found a lot of really fucking amazing things within riding motorcycles. That's kept me riding motorcycles, and now I feel like the camp out is a way to help other people find that same connection, right?
Do you think there's growing to a point where there's too many events? And now
there's already too many events.
and tell me where you land on this. I don't want to say I'm a riding snob, but I ride differently. I'll put it that. I don't think that I ride the way I ride and what I ride to is any different or any better than what anybody else rides to. But I like the idea of the camp outs and this stuff. But I don't get jazzed up about all. It seems like there's a group of people. There's an idea that the only long distance riding you're going to do is to a camp out or to a party or to a Mama Tried or whatever. A Harley event in Wisconsin or whatever. I don't know how the fuck do I want to word this without pissing off the entire community, but just because I think there's a great value in riding, even where there's no Instagram value. And I think that there's become a saturation of people that are just riding to an event because they're going to get Instagram tags or they're going to be able to do whatever. Like, I love Instagram. I love posting pictures, but like, I want you and 3 of your dudes or whatever to ride to Idaho, take a picture in a gas station, having a beer together, and then go somewhere else. And I think there's a trend of people that are creating their entire riding schedule around what party's going on. And that's like club. That's an issue clubs have had too, where instead of just guys getting out on the road together, they're going to a clubhouse a state away because it's an annual or it's a party or whatever. Just go to say hi.
So what you're describing is the essential new guy and the essential experienced guy, right? The new guy or the new-ish guy, the guy that's been riding for maybe 5 years, they need a destination. They need like something to chase, something to go to, whether it's a Daytona, a Sturgis, or a camp out or something like that. When you get to a certain point where let me describe the way I am. Maybe that'll help fill it in. I need 1 or 2 big trips a year that are solely because I'm doing podcasts or something, but I get value out of being on a trip, right? I got to go to Sturgis every year because that's the mecca of motorcycles, and that's where I feel like I'm plugged into the motorcycle matrix when I'm there, and I want to be there. It's the thing I don't want to catch online. I want to go see it. I want to experience it. I want to have a million fucking dates on my wall in my garage of all the years I've been. You know what I'm saying?
But that's also a business trip for you, right?
Yes and no. I mean, every time I jump on my bike, even if I go to the fucking bike night, it's technically business, but I'm not sitting there selling anything. I'm just talking to people. I'm just networking. My business now is networking, right? Talking to people, hanging out. The campouts, like I said, the campouts give people a chance to go to something big that's relatively big, but it's small enough to where you can actually be seen and make friends and feel like you have a little bit of ownership in it. It's not so big that you're just another cog in the wheel or cog in the machine, however the fuck that term goes. You know what I'm saying? Like you go to Daytona, you ain't got shit to do with Daytona. Daytona's its own fucking thing. You're just showing up and putting money back into that situation, right? You go to like my camp out or you go to down south camp out, you're putting more into the community that's like this maybe not community like locally, but this nationwide community of like-minded people. And we don't all ride T-bar baggers. I mean, there's fucking people that ride all kinds of bikes, that come to these events. But to kind of more or less answer or go down your question, it's like, I need a lot of different types of events all year long to satisfy my thirst, right?
Yeah.
I want to have a good trip with the homies, a good long one. I also want a good long one I'm just solo. I want to go to Sturgis. I want to do the Born Free California. I want to do all these things, you know what I mean? And so I need all these different types of events. I do the down south camp out the same way that I tell people to do the fast life camp out. We link up with people in Mississippi and then we mob down to Florida and we party and then we mob the rest of the way to Florida and it's a fucking blast. You know what I mean? So
does the fast life camp out ever get to a point for you where it's like becoming more like a job versus just being able to enjoy it?
It's been a job. It's been a job since day one. But
dude, hey, on the real, how tired of you shaking hands? Be honest.
Oh, that don't bother me, man. I think it's not anybody else's fault. This is a flaw that I have, is that I go to my camp out to check out the same way that everybody else is, right? But a lot of times I feel like I'm supposed to be on, like engaging. What's up, guys? Welcome to the fast. You know what I mean? All this shit. And I'm just not. I'm like over there on some mushrooms, or I'm over here drunk, or, I'm just not. I'm just enjoying the fucking weather. You know what I'm saying? So there are times where that's the only thing that sucks sometimes, is that you feel like everybody that walks up to you and says hi, or they love your podcast or like your paint work or whatever, it's like you just don't want to be a dick to them, and you never know what their level of he's a dick is. It could be I didn't engage enough with them, like, make them feel fucking awesome for walking up to me, or I was short with them or some shit. So I deal with that a lot, you know what I mean? But like I said, a lot of people know, especially if they listen to my podcast, they know every fucking thing about me. I know nothing about them, So it's kind of an uneven or weird situation to be in sometimes.
I think there's a lot of parallels with that between like one of the question you were asking earlier, is there a sense of ownership in the club world? And I think that's a good parallel to draw for people outside looking in, is that it's similar to being a business owner. So where everything that I do as a club member, as representative of my club, everything you're doing as a business owner, especially at your event, it has a potential impact on your business. So that stress of having to be cognizant of your actions and the way you're doing things, it could kind of take the fun out of things. So what is it that you do to like reinsert that fun back into your life? The way the camp out maybe was for you when it first started. How do you get that now?
I ride motorcycles. You know what I mean? I mean, no matter what, like my camp out is not, I'm stoked. I'm excited to be there. You know what I mean? It's a different thing, but like when I'm up on the stage with all these other guys and everybody's coming around and doing the giveaways and people are fucking, all the crazy shit that goes on there, like I fucking love that, man. And when I see all the reels that get made afterwards, I'm like, I'm proud. I'm proud of it. I'm proud that people had fun. They found happiness in motorcycling. Like I've been riding motorcycles and in this kind of air quotes industry or bike scene since 2004, right? I've seen it be this and that and fucking, up and down and fun and sketchy and, and I've had to, being that I work on motorcycles, I've had to find ways to stay in love with motorcycles, which, like you were saying just now, it gets hard sometimes. And in 2016, I started going down this path that I'm currently on, and I'm still as in love with all this shit as I was whenever I found it. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to make more of it. I'm trying to fucking, replicate it or try to give people the opportunity to find it the way I did, or I don't know, some shit like that.
Do you ever go back and listen to like old podcasts from the beginning?
No. Like I said, it's kind of hard to listen to yourself. But me and Jaden on our Patreon have been going down memory lane to do some talk a little bit about behind the scenes of each episode, because I have a good memory of a lot of that stuff. Like I can kind of remember like the feeling I had when I was going into this episode or the setting or shit like that. You know what I mean? So we've been going back in the catalog and just talking about some behind the scenes, which have been very rewarding. Like that's been a reminder just where I was mentally and where I was with the podcast. And because we started the podcast in 2018, 5 months later, I met a few of the guys that are now like some of my closest friends. And then 5 months later after that, we started the first Fast Side Camp Out. So 2018 was a very pivotal year for the podcast, my friends, and the camp out, right? And, it's so going back and listening to it and not listening to the podcast, but just remembering and looking at stories like Jaden brings up his phone and looks at all the Instagram stories that are on the archive that he was doing around that time. And it's a good fun reminiscing that we're doing on these episodes. And we still got a long way to go. We've done 3 episodes and we're only in the middle of 2019. So there's still a lot going on. But that has been very, it's made me very mindful of certain things. You know what I'm saying? So,
and, I don't know how to word this without sucking your dick for a minute. But yeah, I guess to take it to the shaft, you talked about assigning, kind of certain feelings to podcasts you were doing, not just your podcast, there's some other ones too, but, it's the same way when you listen to something. I can reflect back and think about a podcast I was listening to, especially as I get older. Like I'd rather listen to a podcast while I ride than music at this point. And I can assign a podcast to a road or to a trip. And so like I remember one of my favorite ones is the first one with Galen and Lance. And I know I was in I make like an annual pilgrimage to Fort Benning. I love going there, and yeah. There's a memorial behind the Infantry Museum that you can visit, and I just enjoy it. But I can't think of the actual, is it 5? Somebody will eat me up for this one. I don't remember the exact highway. It's like 522 or something like that. That's leaving Fort Benning going south. And I would take that back way to get to Florida and like go visit Ken and stuff like that. But I remember that road and how I love, like, you follow Fort Benning for a while, and there's these big pine trees and all this other stuff that hangs over, and listening to that episode on a back road. And I can vividly remember that. I think one of my favorite episodes is the Paul Yaffe episode. Yeah. And that's an old one. I mean, and I love it because I learned Paul made the shoes for the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders back in the day.
Yeah.
And I never knew that until I heard it on the podcast. But I can remember exactly where I was in Florida on highway. So I always take from Florida up the East Coast. I like to do Highway 17 until you get to like Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. It's great. After Myrtle Beach sucks. And then after that, it sucks. But I remember listening to that Paul Yaffe podcast on 17 coming up the coast. So that's something that, assigning memories like you're talking about to making the podcast, but then listening to them too and being able to kind of have that, this is the feeling or the ride that this evokes.
I remember that entire day that I did that podcast and being at his shop and sitting in his conference room and being nervous talking to him, you know what I mean? Because he's a legend in the custom motorcycle industry and whatnot. But yeah, it's strange, man. It really is.
Was that, I don't remember what episode that was, but that was pretty early on, like 20, like one of the first 20
19.
episodes or something?
No, we did like 50 something episodes the first year. And that was September of 2019 that we did that. So it was probably like 80, 90s.
God, was it really that deep? Huh?
Yeah. Of course, like, the way they do podcasts, like you have to go to our website or YouTube to catch old ones because they archive them on like Spotify and Apple and stuff like that. But yeah, that's, I don't know. I mean, this year, I've had a lot of friends reach out to me this year and, whether they're stroking my shaft or not, I don't know, but a lot of people keep telling me like, this is going to be a good year for me and our brand and the podcast and all the things we have going on. And I'm taking their word for it. I'm hoping, I need a good year just to kind of, make some shit happen. But
like we talked about, in text. So I was in, so I went to Monument Valley. I went to Mexican Hat, and I was trying to make it. Was this 2021? What was the year that they had the really bad forest fires? Like it was closing everything down in the fall, but I think it was 2021. The fall of 2021. I made it to Mexican Hat. I was going to go into Nevada and then California, and the smoke and the heat and everything was so thick. And I'm a polar bear. I'm from the north. I was like, this sucks. Like I'm just going to turn north and head out. And I remember like riding through Utah and like Salt Lake City. And Salt Lake City had these big billboards out that was like, stay inside, air quality shit, stay inside. But I don't know if you've ever been to Logan, Utah. And then I think it's like Logan Pass or Logan Valley or something like that, which it can take you into Wyoming. But it's such a great road. And I'm listening to your podcast while I'm riding these twisties and stuff like that through this valley. And you talked about painting and airbrushing and things like that and being kind of this perishable skill. As you move forward with, the video stuff and the podcast, I mean, is that something that you're going to a skill that you're afraid of losing?
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely afraid of losing it. That's why I want to find ways to stay in practice. Perfect example, man. I grew up loving skateboard culture and skateboarding and all that shit. And there's this great series on YouTube called Epically Latered. And they kind of go and do like a Where Are They Now kind of thing with a lot of old skateboarders and stuff like that. And they did one recently on Bam Margera. And it was wild. You know what I mean? Just how I grew up watching this dude and actually, before, Jackass and all that shit, right? He was an actual pro skater and shit, And in this thing, they were just showing him like he could still do some flips, but also he kind of went the rock star status with all the money he made during Jackass and Viva La Bam and all this shit that he stopped skating, right? And now he's trying to get back to his roots of skating, but he's also much fatter, not as agile as he used to be, and whatnot. And to me, I'm like, well, I don't want to get to that point where something else becomes so successful or so, beneficial or fucking lucrative, if you will, that I don't do that anymore. And then if all this shit fucking falls, then I'm like trying to relearn this skill again. You know what I mean? So staying active in it is the number one goal. But like I said, balancing it so that, you know, it might get to a point where I don't paint many bikes at all, or if any bikes at all. But if I can still paint helmets, then I'm never going to lose the skill, or I'm not going to, because paint materials change over time and you got to be able to evolve with them. You know what I mean? And so if I stop painting now and then 10 years from now, I got to pick it back up, there could be completely new shit out there that I have no idea how to start with it. You know what I mean? So then you're learning materials again and shit like that. So, I mean, I got a lot of opinions about the industry of custom paint and painting in general. It's I don't see a big future in it, but as side money, I think it's always going to be a good side hustle, you know, but I don't know if it's going to be a career for that many more years, you know.
Do you have, as far as passion goes, you know, is it bikes? Is it helmets? I mean, do you feel like there's one that allows you to be more creative, or that you get more return value from? Not just money wise, but just, you know, in your creativity?
I get the most return out of helmet paint jobs because helmets are more personalized and specific for an individual, and they're not getting the helmet so that they can like sell it. You know what I mean? So it's like they want my work and they want my style and they want something that represents them. It's almost like a tattoo, if you will. You know, a bike can be special. Like I love being a part of, like, you know, a build that's for Sturgis or for, you know, a Michael Lichter show or something like that. But majority of people that have bikes painted, they'll sell it, you know. So then that paint job can go to some other guy, and that guy might like it, or he might not. He might sand it off and repaint it, and then there's that artwork gone forever, you know. And so that's one reason why I don't really like painting bikes as much, unless I know it's something that is going to be preserved, you know.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like I feel like when I started really treating my work as real art, I feel like that's also what kind of started putting me on a bigger platform to start making more money with doing it, because I was taking it more seriously. So people took me more seriously with it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to where, like, sometimes when another painter would have a set of tins that I painted that's getting redone, they would either try to sell them or trade them with somebody that has a stock set. You know what I mean? So that it's not ruining or going away forever. So that's pretty rewarding, or, you know, flattering, you know, to have stuff like that happen. And
now your bike it's up for sale, right?
Well, it's not for sale anymore. It didn't sell. So I already had the paint job sold if it didn't. So I'm selling the paint job to another guy. And then I'm going to put like a gray set of ST, like Road Glide ST tins on it, and put it up for sale cheaper. And then if it sells, cool. If not, you know, then I'll just redo it for myself for when I'm not going to start doing any motorcycle travel till about Born Free, California. So late June. So I'm actually not even sure if I'll even have a bike at my camp out this year, to be completely honest with you. So, which for me, you know, like, that's cool. I'm down. Like, there's some great riding out there.
If NoShame's in Texas in April, I'm trying to get him to take the camper to the Fast Life camp out and get some live coverage. All right, we need 4 for the road needs to capitalize on this.
I'm down.
Yeah, I mean, you need to bring your ass down there, dude. What the fuck?
He's talking to you, NoShame.
No, I'm talking to you. Mr. Dave likes to hang out with everybody privately.
I do. You know, and I'm not knocking. I do knock it a little bit when it's like the only thing that somebody does is go somewhere where they're going to be able to get Instagram clout. And, oh man, we live in the East Coast and we're going a state away. I'm like, what is that? 10 miles to the next state? Like, get the fuck out of here. You know, I do like to give a little shit to that, but yeah, my riding, like I said, it's a little bit different. The one-on-one connection, the nothingness, the absolutely no reason to be at this gas station. That's just more my jam. But I did tell Craig Turbo that I was like, if this is really the last down south camp out, you know, usually it's like a hit or miss. It's a gamble whether or not it's going to be a blizzard in Wisconsin or it's going to be in the 60s when he has his down south. So I was like, if this is really the last one, I want to come. I want to do it. I want to ride with him to Key West. And if I get snowed in, I'll just get storage in Florida and fly home. I was like, you're paying for the storage, but I'll get it and then fly home.
He said that. He said that on the podcast. But yeah, it's definitely not the last down south camp out. He's just trying to gimmick people into coming. But I guess if you can, like, what you were just saying about how, like, you're not doing it for the gram. To be completely fair, man, like, what certain people do does not dictate what everybody does. You know what I mean? Yeah, there are people there that are trying to, do their TikTok dances to get online and whatnot. But there are so many people there that are just chilling with their friends by a campfire, fishing, fucking riding, just doing all this stuff. And you don't hear about that because they don't fucking post it, dude. So
and I love, don't get me wrong, I love posting shit. I think we should post more shit because it just gives people ideas. My hang up is the guys that are just, I'm going 10 miles down the road. I'm going one state over so that I can, and that's the only riding I'm doing, all year, one state over, so that I can post it up on Instagram.
That's 98% of motorcyclists.
Hey, we just invented a new thing. Hey, no shame. We're 2%ers now.
Yeah. I mean, literally. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Milkman.
I love going to, like, doing the Saturday, ride to the bar and then this bar, that bar, that bar. I like that too. I don't like doing it every time I ride. But, every once in a while when all the boys are fucking free and it's like, oh, shit, are we doing this today? Hell yeah, we're going fucking hard. You know what I mean? I like to let whatever the fucking universe is going to be, let it fucking be. You know what I mean? So I don't want to sit here and say, oh, I fucking hate all these fucking, bar hopper bikers. It's like, first off, I don't give a fuck any other biker does. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why should it, like, be any bearing on me? Like, I think it becomes like a validation thing for a lot of people. Like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great outlook. I probably need to adapt more of that outlook. No, I think you're spot on. I would have a pivot question on that to no shame. Like, being in the club world, why do you not like riding with your brothers? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But I'm sure that's something that you experience is, like, the brothers that want to get together and ride real far for no reason, and then guys that are, they're not as enthusiastic about riding.
I mean, I definitely have my own riding style that I just enjoy. Like, I like to do long 900 to 1,200 mile days, and then you just do those kind of back to back. And I like to leave early in the morning. There's certain things that I like to do that aren't conducive to riding in a huge pack. Like, to me, the prime number of people to ride with at a time is like 2 to 3. So there's, like, obviously cool things about riding with all your brothers. You get 50 bikes on the road and everybody's going to one destination. Like, that's cool. I would not want to do that for more than, like, 50 miles. I don't know. It just there's a lot of there's just so many things to consider. To me, it's stressful. I'm thinking about who's going to break down, who's going to have a freaking tire blowout, like all the different.
I think your audio just cut out, dude. At least on mine, it did.
The picture of him looks like he's trying to shit right now.
you saw?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back now.
Oh, sweet. So yeah, there's definitely a benefit to me in riding in smaller numbers. And I definitely enjoy getting out on those, like, solo trips that aren't to a club destination, that are just out wherever I want to go, maybe one or two brothers with me, or just anybody. Like, we had that trip planned for everybody from the page to meet up. Like, that's something I definitely want to do and see through next time, and just getting different experiences and not just doing the same kind of thing over and over again.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. It's like, the reason why I do all the different trips I do is because each one's a different type of riding experience. I have 8. There's 7 other guys that I do my big trips with, and we're pretty locked and loaded, and we're not bar to bar kind of guys. We're fucking staggered, and we some of us are texting while we ride, you know what I mean? But we all fucking ride good together. We've almost ridden all the states and no issues on bikes or anything like that. So But I like that experience. I love when we get to a gas station and it might be a 45-minute stop, because I truly do believe it's the journey, not the destination. So I'm not going to stress out over the fact that we stayed at this gas station too long. It's part of it. You know what I mean? It's part of this experience, right? And then when we get to the fucking town or the hotel or the Chili's that we're going to that night in the small town, like, it's all an experience. And it's kind of like the more you give into letting that be what it is, you get to fucking enjoy it. It's like when I travel solo, I'm like you. I'm bound to do like 1,100 miles or 1,200 miles in a day, and there's times when I won't even get off my bike at a gas stop. I just pull up, gas up, and I'm like, I don't have to pee. I'm going to keep going, right? And I enjoy that alone, but you know what I mean? I don't necessarily know if I would enjoy that with all the other guys. That's kind of for that type of riding. I like Dave, like you were talking about, when I'm riding solo, I'll pull off and go climb up to the top of that rock and just sit there and do my John Teller on my phone and shit. You know what I'm saying? Or fucking Jack's Teller, whatever the fuck you always say. I like all those things, but it's just, they're different, and they're supposed to be different, because if it's all the same shit, you're going to get bored quick and you're going to leave motorcycles and go get a fucking jet ski or something. You know what I mean? There's got to be something new to always, fall in love with. And if you recreate the same thing you do every day over and over again, I feel like you're going to fast track yourself out of falling out of love with this. You know what I mean? So.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I think maybe it's just age or I don't know, just changing or whatever. But, I came to a point where I realized I don't love bikes. I love what bikes give me. And I love bikes in the sense that if somebody's got a cool bike, if somebody's working on it, they're doing a paint job, they're wrenching on it, whatever. I find that interesting because they're interested in it, but I don't want to do it. I want to go and I want to tell Alex at House of Harley how amazing he is and Ian how amazing they are, and have them do it. All right. Just call me when it's done. And I'm fine with that, because I like seeing dudes that are passionate and good at something get a chance to do that. But like I think you said it, you didn't say it now, but in a podcast, I don't think it was our podcast that you're on. It must have been one of your own. The look when you're riding with a group of your friends, and I'm sure this probably applies to club dudes, and you're going somewhere new for them or the first time, or you're excited because you're leading the ride and you're going to show them something or take them someplace. And then the enjoyment that they get out of that, I love that. It's like, for me, it can be a monument. It can be the prairie. It can be this little ass museum that nobody knows about that I dig. I like taking people in a small group of my friends to that. I enjoy that more than a party.
Yeah, well, I enjoy that as well. But I've had the privilege of discovering new shit with my homies this past year. We discovered Idaho together, and that place was fucking amazing. Yeah. One of the best riding I've ever done in my life. And every time one of us would get close to each other, we got tinted visors and helmets, but we're like, just fucking real. You know what I mean? Just fucking serious. You know exactly what everybody's saying. So it's like I said, there's, to what you just said, when people come to the camp out and they get that experience, right? That's the same way that I feel whenever I show them or a homie this certain stretch of the 101 or, something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's absolutely all rewarding.
And no shame. Is it the same? Is it the same in clubs? Like, I mean, maybe it's a different scenario, but still kind of that same enjoyment?
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, the big thing as far as like going on runs is like just seeing people you haven't seen in a while, like, and interact. I think the best relationships are built on the road, and it's like you were saying, like, sometimes you like look around yourself and it's just like wow, this is really my fucking life right now, and it is a pretty rewarding feeling. And sometimes like one of the things I think of is like there's some guy sitting in a fucking cubicle somewhere, and he's just hating his fucking life, wishing he could get away from his nagging wife and his badass kids. And he probably sees like somebody like us riding down the fucking road, free as could fucking be. And there's people that are jealous of what we get to do. And it's good not to take that for granted and to really soak it and appreciate it.
And I don't on the last podcast, we kind of had that mini debate between club or no club, but I think the difference is, and the similarities. Sorry, the similarity is that enjoyment from riding, and for me saying I don't know that I'll ever go back to a club. I'm doing a different kind of riding than somebody in a club usually, but we're both experiencing the same joy, and I think that's something on why. Even if I say I might never go back to a club, or I think that not being in a club is better or whatever, I still pay respect to it. I still love the community because I think there's a shared enjoyment. It's just sometimes it's just a different avenue, but the passion is the same. I can do different things on my bike that a club guy sometimes can't, but we're still finding that same common enjoyment when we're on the road. It's the same passion.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, as a guy that I've done, I spent a little bit of time, 5 years of my life doing club stuff, and being on the road won the battle of picking a club over being able to travel everywhere, and just finding people that want to do the things that I want to do, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we're really doing that debate or anything anymore, but
no, I told you we certainly talk about it a little bit, but I think that we did it on our show, but we have a certain demographic, we have a certain audience. Not that we don't have crossovers.
Okay, well,
but I think the people you can reach on your podcast
about like the takeaway from that podcast that you guys did together. One thing I wanted to say the whole time, but I just didn't have a microphone this time, is that club people, the people that want to be in clubs, that are a good member in a club and a good friend, are the same fucking thing, right? It's like commitment, right? Like my friends that I'm good with is because they committed to the idea of doing what we do. You know what I mean? So we all search for the same type of characteristics in a man to be friends, which this sounds gay as AIDS right now, but it's the truth. You know what I mean? Like the guys that make great club members also are the ones that make great friends. So I just wish more people would consider the fact that like how they treat their friends, the people they grew up with, their family, is a representation of how they're going to be in a fucking club. You know what I mean? Long term. I mean, everybody's the best fucking friend and the best member of a club when they first get in and everything's new and exciting. But after you've been around for a while, everything starts to settle in, and the habits come, and the fucking I don't feel like getting out today. I don't feel like doing this today. I don't feel like doing that. It's like the one thing that I push my friends to do, and sometimes I get a lot of backlash. It's not like a perfect world, but I push my friends to be there for each other regardless of how you feel today. Like the reason we do a bike night every week is because you never know who needs that fucking bike night that week, right? And you never know who needs it. And if you're there to provide them with some fucking conversation, have a beer with them, shoot the shit, you never know what that does for them, and you never know when you're going to need it. You know what I'm saying?
I love what you just said, because first of all, it just sounds cool. You never know who's going to need that bike night. But the sentiment goes great. The sentiment goes great with, I don't know if it was NoShame or Ken. Somebody said the thing that they really enjoy about a club is that you pick each other up. You don't just cast somebody aside. I think it was NoShame. You don't just cast somebody aside when they're down. You look to find out what's wrong and how you can build them back up or be that support for them. So I think, you hitting on that same thing, it shows there's a lot of similarities, but like you said, it comes down to a good club guy is the same thing that makes one of your best friends. It's just that characteristics in a man. And you, like you said, you never know who's going to need that pick me up, who's going to need that support, who's going to need that bike night. I love that.
I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, I'm sure that club people get this, but we get it in our friends groups. Like, the guy that, his old lady won't let him go to a bike night once a week. One day a week for 2 or 3 hours. Like, that's not going to be a good club guy. You know what I mean? It comes down to like, well, okay, well, we do this every week. I see you every week. I'm like, well, then open up more. Let's have deeper conversations. Let's get to know each other more. Let's take this shit to another level so that it's not just like what T-bars you're putting on your bike next week. You know what I mean? And when we've had people that did open up that way, then we got the friends that we have now, right? And it's not like an open enrollment thing. I mean, there's still a lot of rad dudes that come around, but we travel in a group of 7 or in group of 8, including myself. So, there's certain things that certain people don't get to be a part of because they're not a part of that. You know what I mean? But, bike nights, is how I met these guys. And if everybody took the same approach, at least when I say everybody, I'm just talking about my world. You know what I mean? I live in a big city with lots and lots of bikes and lots of people that ride bikes, and we have all year riding. So what happens in Dallas is kind of a little bit different than what's going to be the case for Milwaukee or Chicago or St. Louis. You know what I'm saying? But, I encourage people to be consistent with their friendships and be there for each other and try to encourage each other. One of the funnest things about like any relationship, whether it's your old lady, yourself, your club, anything, is when you have something to look forward to. You know what I mean? Whether that's a trip, or me and the boys are going to this weekend, or me and my wife are going on this trip, or me and my club are going to this run, or we're going to nationals or some shit like that. So there's like, always try to give yourselves and your friends groups something to look forward to achieve a goal, right? And then that keeps people more motivated. You know what I mean? It keeps people more focused on like doing something and accomplishing stuff together. Does that make sense?
No shame. Question for you, and Jace too. So I think when we're talking about friends versus club, one thing I think that might be true for a friends group, you're probably coming together. Well, you are coming together because of a shared common interest or person. Not that people aren't different, but for the most part, you're clicking up with friends because you have shared common interests, backgrounds, goals, life directions, whatever the case may be. I think a difference for clubs is you're kind of a melting pot of people that maybe would have never met outside of the fact that they shared a passion to be in a club or whatever. And you have this, I don't know one's better or worse. That's not the right way to look at it. But just the diversity of that group. Does that make sense? No shame.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the way that, like what Jace is talking about with his group of friends, it seems like a more organic way of meeting people, something that would happen in like a normal everyday situation. I think what he brings to the table and his group is that I think it kind of sounds like you bring a little bit more organization, like what you're talking about, giving people a common goal and giving people something to motivate them towards. That's like, you sound like a solid fucking friend, trying to push people to be better, trying to push the group as a whole to rise to another level. And I think a lot of friend groups don't have that. I think the formation of what you guys are talking about seems a little bit more natural and organic than it would be to join a club. Because like when you're talking about a club, it's, I've got brothers that are from all over the country. Like I'm here in Florida right now hanging out with fucking different people, but I started my journey out in Washington, literally opposite end of the fucking country. But there's still people here that I'm bound to by a patch. So there's people I get to meet that I never would have met if I wasn't in this club. Guarantee I wouldn't have met them. And we get to like, get those different experiences and have those different bonds based on like a loyalty and like a commitment to the club. Now, is that better or worse? I don't think either one's better or worse. I'm a huge proponent of not joining a club. I think I said that last time, and I'm going to say it till the day that I die. If there's not something that a club gives you that you absolutely can't get somewhere else, you probably shouldn't do it, because there's a lot of bullshit that comes with being in a club. But there are things that you won't find somewhere else that you will find in a club. Yeah,
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that if everybody would focus on trying to be the best version of, I don't know, a friend or a man, if you will, like, I'm not saying that I am. I'm always trying to be a better friend, a better husband, a better dad, shit like that. And I just feel like, I guess because of my years of riding and even the times that we were in a club, and you would see the same thing happen in club with people. It's a human dynamic. It's not a club or friendship thing. It's just straight human shit, right? It's some guys are the best fucking dudes in the world, especially when they're single. You know what I mean? They're down to ride, they're down to party, they're down to come help you do whatever in the garage. They're just down to be the best, or a great friend, until they get an old lady, and then they're nowhere to be found, which is fine to an extent. But then they never come back down to baseline, right? They just like, and then at the same time, I've gotten to this point in my life where I'm used to that. And I'm not saying that they're a bad person because of that. I'm just like, well, they were in my life for a certain amount of time, and I enjoyed that time with them, and I got to, hopefully learn something from them, like maybe their perspective or maybe something about them. I can add now to like my idea of being a human. You know what I'm saying? But
can I add something to that point real quick?
Yeah.
That was one of the things I was saying that I enjoy about being in a club specifically, is that, if you're doing your club right, there's multiple points in somebody's life that they could join a club. And this is something you have to really stress when we're talking about this, if you're doing it right. So if the club is functioning properly. So you might have this group of friends, right? And then one person, their life circumstances changes. And it's not like you kick them out of the fucking friend group, like you're fucking banning them. But everybody's seen it. You just kind of fade away. One of the things that I enjoy about being in a club is that there's usually always somebody else that's in a similar situation to me. So like when I first started in the club, I was like a single bachelor kind of situation. My kids lived with my wife across the country, or my ex-wife across the country, and I didn't have them. But then when I got my kids, it was like my situation changed. Well, now I've found myself, just fitting in more and hanging out more with the other brothers that had kids that were of a similar age. So that was one of the things that I enjoyed, is that I didn't lose those bonds completely, but I kind of just shifted where I went. And I see it happen all the time. And it's kind of funny because you'll get it in clubs. You'll have like the super member, like you were saying, like the single guy that's like, he's why is nobody out here at the bar with me? And then, a couple months later, he's booed up with some girl, and then all of a sudden you don't see him anymore. So it's funny to me to kind of see those dynamics play out. And it's just interesting to hear you kind of talk about it in the same way with a friends group. But that is a stark difference in the club versus friend situation, is that being bound by something a little bit underlying than the connection itself kind of forces you to maintain those relationships, if you will. Whereas I think normally they would kind of just fade away.
Well, what I think Dave was putting this point together on the last podcast, but I hate for it to sound like it's a better or a worse situation or a comparison in that matter. But when you are bound by a club because everybody joined up, they agreed to the terms and conditions, right? The thing about that is that you can kind of always use that as like a, hey man, like you signed up for this shit, so where the fuck are you, right? Well, if they really don't want to be there, you know what I'm saying? Like but they don't want to leave the club, so they show up anyway. Maybe that's good or bad. That depends on the circumstance and the, I guess, the viewer, like where you're looking at it from. But when you're just friends, like they have no obligation, so they can just dip out or fucking whatever, and they're just, it's gone.
I think you can kind of relate that to, though, like what you were saying earlier, when like we have a bike night every week, and sometimes it's for that guy that needs the bike night. We had another one of our writers talking about and I go through it too. Sometimes I go through like seasonal depression. So like I'll get into these funks where it's like I don't want to fucking leave the house, but I have this obligation to the club that forces me to leave the house. And then so the moment I leave and I'm around my brothers, and then we're joking around and shit, it kind of helps to pull me out of that rut that I'm in. And that's one of those things that I enjoy about it, as well, is that forced accountability. So yeah, like you said, like maybe it's a positive to some people, maybe it's a negative to others. Yeah. But it could go either way.
I like that. You're taking it sounds, if you're an outsider listening, it sounds almost like a negative, but I see it as a positive. The forced accountability. I like that term and that thought. Like that's probably something that first of all, I think that what I like about Jace, what I like about NoShame, what I like about people like you that I think make good friend groups, make good club brothers. And I think if we're really honest with ourselves, the best club dudes that we've ever known and the best friends we've ever had are dudes that are able to be super introspective and I guess critical of themselves and able to grow from that. I don't think that the best club brothers or the best friends you ever had in your life are the super hua, egotistical, prideful in a negative way kind of dudes. They kind of fall off. I think as we mature, we surround ourselves with people that are able to look at things with an introspective lens scope, and we really surround ourselves with that. At least I feel like that's kind of how I've changed. And I think I missed out on that, not being in a club anymore and not being a club guy. Like NoShame said, the forced accountability, that's a huge thing. To look at myself and where I fall short. A lot of my writing, not a lot of, I'm sorry, so I could ride to South Dakota, Wyoming, whatever, by myself tomorrow if it wasn't snowing outside. And I could do whatever I wanted. But sometimes that's my worst enemy. Like I'm going to ride by myself to a place where I'm going to think about things and be alone in these thoughts. And maybe I'm going to drive myself further down a hole of depression, even though I'm doing something that I love, because I don't have forced accountability to kind of bring myself up first before this ride. So I like the way that NoShame put that. And I think maybe that's something that other people miss out on. And I would say that I probably do.
Yeah, well, there's, like I said, there's lots of dynamics where all this stuff is very similar, and we deal with the same stuff. You know what I mean? Like I said, all these points are just the human thing. It's being a male, being a friend, trying to, when I say friend, you say club brother. I want everybody around me to be as whatever, like, in a perfect world, if I controlled everything, I'd want them to have everything that I have, at least, as far as like notoriety in the motorcycle scene, the opportunity to do the things that I do, and whatnot. But I know that's not the case. But I want to build a bunch of fucking leaders. I want all my homies to be the kind of guys where if I'm on the trip, and they really are. They fucking, I had to dip out, midway through our last trip last year, and they carried on. Made it all happen without me, you know what I mean? And that's what you want in men, you know what I mean? I just wish that let me put it like this. What I deal with a lot, I get this all the time. And there's truth to it, but there's also like, I just want to say, man the fuck up. Everybody's always comes to me like with their excuses as to why they can't come to bike night, or why they can't go to a camp out, or why they don't get to go ride, or why, they have kids, or they're this and blah, blah, blah. But they have a motorcycle, they have a road glide, you know what I mean? But they can't do all this other shit that's cheap, easy, and it just costs time. But then you catch them on Instagram and they're fucking playing in a softball league. You know what I'm saying? And it's just a prioritizing thing that, like, I get at bike nights. Sometimes these guys are, Jace, you're just hard on people. You're just like, you're trying to push people and they just can't do what you can do. And I'm like, you ain't got no fucking kids, and you can't, and I got 2 kids and I'm doing all this and I can still show the fuck up. Like, so yes, we deal with the same shit as just a bike night and friends and homies as you will in a club. And I guess at the end of the day, like, the only benefit is that we get to sit down and plan a trip to go all over the country and every city and every state and every line. And there's no boundaries that we can't cross. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't have anything on our backs but our friendship. So that's where it gets easier.
And I think you brought up a great point too, the prioritizing. And this isn't a club or an independent thing. It's just an in general thing. Like, if you want to make that run with your brothers, you'll prioritize it, and you'll move other things around, or you'll complete tasks that you have to complete so that you can go. And it's the same thing. If you're coming to Jace and you're saying, oh, I wish I could do what you do, but you're choosing to play in rec league softball or join a basketball league, like, that's fine, but you can't then complain about not being able to do what Jace does. You're saying, look, I have multiple interests. I'm going to do all these different things. If you want to be as committed as your club brothers and make all these runs, you'll prioritize that. If you want to ride like Jace rides, you'll prioritize that.
And the crazy thing is, like, we have so many homies that do that do have all these other things, and they do shit, and then they show up and it's like, bro, where you been? How you been? There's nothing, like everything's happy, right? It's the guys that want validation because of what they can't do, but they still want to be considered one of the guys. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, it's a weird dynamic. I'm trying to explain it the best I can, but it's just weird because some people are just cool as shit. And if they haven't been there to bike night in 3 months and they show up, we're more like, fuck, where you been? How you been? How's things going? And then there's one guy that's like, oh, I can't do what you guys could do. And so I want to kind of create an opposition kind of situation. And then we just fucking bag on the dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that people want to be around folks that are just honest. And if you're honest, well, look, I like playing basketball during the week too, as much as I like riding my motorcycle. That's cool. I dig that. My wife and I are taking art classes together, whatever it is. Fine. I dig that. But, you know, if you come to me and say, well, I can't, you've got excuses. Well, I can't afford dues in my club, but he's got a Corvette outside. I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't have bought that new fucking car. I think that's the difference.
People, the biggest one we get a lot is people can't take the time off work to do the things we do. And I'm like, well, who said you have to do what we do? You know what I mean? Like, we put together so many different types of events that could fit so many different types of people's availability, right? Especially the camp out's located where in a 400-mile radius, you're hitting almost a lot of major cities in the central part of the United States, right? So, you get off work on Friday night, you rip down there in the weekend. Most people have weekends off in most jobs. I know that's a generalization, but so you can come there. You might not have to ride across country, or maybe you live on the West Coast, and then you have no excuse because there's something going on every fucking weekend out there somewhere, right? You don't have to come to our event, but there's events out there, right?
That's like my dude. So I've been friends for a long time, and I love this dude, Jay, who runs Left Lane Syndicate. Yeah. Left Lane is for crime. We have this running joke of it must be nice because it's just kind of this thing you heard where, people that want to hate on it or can't do it, they always say, oh, it must be nice to be able to do this. And I've seen that a few, not as much because my Instagram is much smaller and it's usually just my friends and stuff like that. So they'll tell me that I'm gay, but they usually, they don't bag on me for things that aren't true. But, you get this thing, it must be nice or whatever. And I'm like, I set my life up because this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to work a job that covered my bills and allowed me the freedom to be a good dad and to also be a little bit selfish and take these trips that I like to take and ride my motorcycle or drive my car and go hiking or whatever, take vacations with my wife. Now, there's guys that are, just as an example, because I know one, there's a welder out there. He's making double what I'm making, maybe more than double what I'm making, but he puts in some hard ass hours, 5-6 days a week, sometimes, whatever. But he's making that money and he's saving for retirement and he's got his plans and things like that. That's his choice. And that's what he's good at and what he enjoys. I figured out that I don't really want to work that hard and I only need to make this amount of money and I'm going to be able to have this much flexibility in my job. And if you hate on that, like what the fuck is the point of hating on that? And so we always joke about it must be nice. I fucking hate that saying.
Yeah, that's a projection that people put on, like they're projecting because they want to tell you their problem, right? Oh, it must be nice. I can't do this, and this, right? The thing is, I guess, I hope I didn't just lose this thought, but there's like, fuck, I lost it. I lost it. God damn it. It was good too, I think. No, it's I think that if people would just look at everything as like it's just all opportunities, everything, whether it's a Daytona, a camp out, a Sturgis, a bike club, a bike night, it's just an opportunity. And try to live your life as capitalizing on as many opportunities as around you is available to you. At whatever else is going on in your life, your kids, your wife, your job, take the opportunities that you have to do anything within this realm of shit that you want to do, like motorcycles. So it's one of those situations where I just wish that more people would look at stuff like that. They would just not take things for granted, basically, like Like when you came to meet when I was in Milwaukee the first time and you drove an hour and a half, 2 hours to come have fucking dinner and a beer with me. That's an opportunity taken. It was inconvenience, but you had the time and you did it. And now we're friends. You know what I'm saying? Kind of.
We'll see. We'll see if I get a call for when you hit Wisconsin on this year's trip.
We're going through the north part of Wisconsin, like very north, like Duluth.
Yeah, you should. That is, people sleep on that. People want to go and they want to see. They either want to go to Milwaukee, they want to go to the Dells for some reason, or they want to go see SNS. And out where SNS has some very nice roads and stuff like that. But if you come through Iowa, you've seen the same shit that you're going to see visiting the SNS area. The Superior area is one of my favorite rides. It's never crowded. There's a bar every couple of miles. The lake is gorgeous. I mean, the lake is, first of all, it's huge and it's clear. And there's just so many like spots that you can pull off, roads that you can ride that follow the lake. And especially if you come through the Duluth side, depending on how far up Minnesota you go, you can go and follow the lake all the way to the Canadian border, turn around and come back. And you're following the lake the whole time, and it's just awesome scenery. Yeah,
well, that's the plan. We're actually going to skip Milwaukee and Madison. We were trying to like line it up to come down there, but like I said, me and the boys, we're wrapping up all 50 state or 48 states this year, and we had to split our trip up into two 10-day trips to hit them all, because we're going to leave here and we're going to basically ride up Kansas City, Sioux City, hit North Dakota, then jump straight over to Duluth for a night. And so we'll actually knock out Missouri, Iowa, North Dakota, and Minnesota on that part. And then as a group, we still haven't ridden Michigan, Indiana, Illinois. And so we're just going to basically do one big loop and come back. And then on the East Coast, we didn't hit West Virginia, South Carolina, or Florida together. So we're just going to kind of do one big loop that way. And
if you get a chance for like South Carolina and Florida, I love taking Highway 17 that goes from Florida through Georgia and into South Carolina and North Carolina. I mean, it goes on forever, but there's a road off of Highway 17. You can look it up. I don't remember what it is. But it'll take you to where they filmed the house where they filmed Forrest Gump, like his original, like the house and the road that he ran down when his legs when the things are flying off his legs. That is we rode that last year, Ken and Drifter and I. Such an amazing road, like such a great ride. I love that. But
where's that? What state is that in?
South Carolina.
Okay, we're supposed to be staying at our buddy Big Will Cody's aunt's lake house in South Carolina, and then his aunt also has a mountain house in Boone, North Carolina. So we're going from one house to the next on this trip. So
I love riding South Carolina, North Carolina. They're just great riding. But as far as the Midwest goes, if you're able to come through like Duluth and northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and then I mean all of that is easy riding. You don't hit traffic, you don't hit cities or anything like that. Like it's just a smooth shot from Minnesota, Wisconsin into the upper peninsula of Michigan. And then you can come down over the Mackinac Bridge and you're right into Michigan.
Yeah. And we're going to basically ride the whole, the loop through the bridge and then kind of ride the whole western coast down through Muskegon and then go to Chicago and then start 66 in Chicago and take it all the way to probably Joplin and then head straight south of Joplin into Arkansas. So it's shaped up. It was kind of looking a little dreary and kind of boring, but it's shaped up into something really badass. And I recently drove through Kansas City and in Iowa, and I actually fell in love with it. Kansas City was pretty rad. And Iowa was like, I'd fucking rather ride Iowa any day of the week than Florida. It's fucking way.
I love Iowa. I think it's great riding. I don't know if you've ever gone. I don't know why you would, but if you ever come from Wisconsin and you're gonna go to South Dakota, my favorite route is to just take the back roads that'll take you to like Sioux City, which is right on the border, and you can ride the back roads right into South Dakota, and you'll eventually come out like Yankton, South Dakota, which most people miss because they're just focused on going to Sturgis. But you can. So I'm a big fucking nerd. I'll follow the Lewis and Clark Trail and how they came up into South Dakota. And they followed the Missouri River. And so it'll bring you right through all that. And it's gorgeous riding. And same thing with Iowa. You can follow Iowa down to Mississippi to come into Wisconsin. And I enjoy it. But you have to be a little bit of a nerd, and you have to enjoy like nothingness. You have to enjoy gas station bar, small town, gas station bar, small town. If that's your jam, you'll enjoy it.
I love it, man. I wish people would, like I said, when you get to a point after you've done enough of the real popular states, then, you get this fulfillment of wanting to check out what each state has to offer, and even though, I'm just going to be touching North Dakota, I'm going to go back at some point in my life and really ride North Dakota and find something within it that's, interesting or, of value to me, motorcycling, you know what I mean? But there's still a lot of East Coast trips. I still want to go back east, Northeast, and Boston and Maine, and spend more time in Vermont and New Hampshire. That's another one on the list. But
I love riding West Virginia, but I don't know if there's ever been back roads that have scared me more than the roads in West Virginia. And maybe I'm just kind of a slow, sloppy rider. I don't need to shred or anything like that. But man, West Virginia's got some switchbacks, and you're coming uphill, and all of a sudden it turns to gravel, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on here? But I mean, the scenery is gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's there's a lot of really nice things to do on motorcycles than just go to California, even though California is fucking awesome.
I want to go. There's a club out there, the Pasadena Motorcycle Club, which is like one of the oldest clubs in the motorcycle scene. I think the second oldest club in the United States. And they do an enduro run, which is like a throwback to what they used to do in the 20s. And I've always wanted to make that. And it's obviously in Pasadena, California, and then get a chance to visit the two-lane life guys and thrashing and stuff like that. But that's, like I said, that one time I tried to make it, but that smoke and that fire and that heat in Nevada, I was like, I'm good. I'm going to turn around.
Just got to push through it, man.
No, dude, I turned around. My goal has always been to ride Death Valley. I want to ride Death Valley at night so bad.
I want to do Death Valley at night. I want to camp there. I want to do some of that just primitive, like pull off on the road, go down and just camp in the middle of nowhere. Not alone. That's probably something I'd like to do with like a couple of homies, At
least somebody's got to we need like some guns, and somebody's got to pull guard. Yeah. Like I don't be out there alone.
I think that Eastern Sierra part of California is kind of slept on, and we rode some of it this last year, and I don't know. I haven't planned to go back, but it's on the list of like something I really want to do a deep dive and ride.
What's that highway that goes from like Lone Pine? Like you come out of Death Valley, you end up in Lone Pine, California, and then you go north. I can't think of the highway right now, but it'll take you to Mammoth Lakes.
I don't know, because we started at Mammoth. We came across Nevada and dove right into Mammoth, and so everything south of that I haven't ridden yet, but I've ridden from Mammoth essentially up to Carson City and Reno.
And we flew in, and my wife and I, we rented a car and went to Lone Pine and then went north to Mammoth. But I mean, I would love to go back with a bike. I'm trying to get Brandon from Mercenary Motorcycle. He just got out of the service and all that stuff. And I was like, man, before you get bogged down, I want somebody that'll ride to Nevada and do the extraterrestrial highway.
Yeah, we rode that last year.
How is it on a bike? How is it on a bike?
It's horrible. It's overrated.
Really?
Yeah, there's nothing there.
I'm sold.
There's nothing there.
Did you go to Area 51?
Not really, because it's not necessarily as easily navigated as people think it is.
Yeah.
There's the black mailbox. There's the gas station where they have all the extraterrestrial shit, and then there's the the sign that everybody takes a picture with right there.
Yeah.
And then it's like you got to go off the road like 20-something miles. Dirt roads out there, and there's not really any gas out there. So on a bike, it's kind of a shit show, to be honest with you. And it's like it's just nothing. I mean, I'm glad I did it. I'm not saying don't do it, but will I ever do it again? Absolutely not. I want to ride. I would rather ride 50 across Nevada, the loneliest highway. And there's lots of cool little shit like trinkets on that, because that was one of the original Pony Express trails.
Yeah.
For that stuff. And so there's parts of that I'd probably find more entertaining, if you will, because all the alien shit, and there's wackos out there, dude. There was a dude that was like getting chased off by a cop out there that was saying that his spaceship was stuck in fucking Area 51. They won't let him get to it. I'm like, oh shit, this is real. Like, people are fucking crazy, or this dude's telling the truth and we're just fucking dumb. You know what I mean? There's that too. So
well, I was listening. So they released all that information. Was it last year, 2 years ago? That, like, I guess there really are, like, the government was looking at UFO contacts and pilots that saw it and stuff like that. And so then I started listening to that Joe Rogan podcast that he did with Bob Lazar, who was like the Area 51 guy or whatever, that like blew the whistle on Area 51. So now I've been like watching these documentaries on him. My wife she's like, you lost your fucking mind. I'm like, no, Rogan told me to watch this. It's cool.
You need to do a puzzle or something. Did like 2,000 piece puzzle. Take that right out of your head, man.
In May we're gonna do a West Coast, well, not a West Coast, but a up Western ride, and I'm gonna meet with one of my dudes that lives in Tennessee. He's gonna ride up, and we're gonna do Wyoming, South Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana. Want to do Missoula, and then that dude that lives up there, Drew. Yeah, Drew from the zoo. He was saying that like, what is it, Highway 12 or something that goes out of Missoula is supposed to be like just a gorgeous ride. So I want to do that. I think Missoula will probably be the end, and then turn around, ride a little bit up there, and then turn around and start heading back. It's crazy because Missoula, and then you're right there at the beginning of the road that goes into Idaho that we rode. That was one of the most amazing roads we've ever done. I feel like Missoula should be the start, and then you should just like stay in that whole like quarter, like zigzag across Idaho and Montana border. Basically, it's fucking beautiful. You know? Yeah, it is. I love it out there. I haven't gone that far into Idaho. I came up from Utah and hit a little bit of it to go see Hemingway's grave, and then cut back over. Have you been to the Tetons? Yeah, I fucking hated it. Oh, well, some guys are boob guys, some guys are ass guys. Did you like it? Yeah, it's fucking beautiful. It was good scenery. Road. Well, I was in like Jackson Hole. Yeah, so that main highway, I don't know. We just had such a good, perfect weather day when we were riding it. It felt like there was a painting. We're riding next to a painting. You know what I mean? It was so clear. And, so this was again the fire season, and so I went in fall. Couldn't see it. It was like just clouded and smoke. Traffic was like horrendous, like down because it's like 2 lanes for that scenic route that goes out of Jackson, right? Yeah. Yeah, traffic was horrendous. And like when I was in Jackson, it was like Lamborghinis and Ferraris and like all these rich people like just zooming in and out of everything. I was like, this isn't fun at all. We did that whole run through Yellowstone and Wyoming and all that in 2020, right after Sturgis. So we did it when the country was still shut down. And so there's a lot of unrealistic experiences that I think, you know what I mean? My first experience in New York City was during COVID. So we were riding around Manhattan like it was a normal city, you know what I mean? So it's like it's unrealistic, but no, I loved it out there. It's beautiful. But I think that you go to the Northwest like in the summer months, and you always go east in the fall. The foliage is one of the most amazing things about riding east, and you got to do it at the right time of year to kind of experience that, which, you know, you're part of, you know, you get that foliage up there where you're at in Madison. So, you know, when I rode in September, I rode through Madison all the way up to SNS that time. Just all the leaves coming down, the colors on the road, you're riding. I felt like I was in a goddamn car commercial. Like, you know what I mean? Well, you took back roads too the whole way, right? Yeah. It was beautiful. But I was on a big old ape hanger street glide, so I was just cruising it. You know what I mean? But it was beautiful. What is that one? Leaving your house, I don't remember. I took back roads. I didn't get on the interstate, and I don't remember what the back road was. But is it Dinosaur National Park or Dinosaur State Park or whatever it is? It's between you and San Antonio. Well, between me and San Antonio is about 250 miles, 300 miles. So there's quite a bit of shit. It depends on which way you go, because we have a few of those areas out there where there's lots of fossils and shit like that. You know what I mean? And I love that road. I was in the car, obviously. I was picking my wife up at the San Antonio airport, but I want to come back and do that route from Dallas to San Antonio back way on a bike. I loved it. It was gorgeous. Dude, we got good shit in Texas. I mean, even
pretty much all over Texas, there's good stuff. It's just perspective. It's how you look at it. Even in the parts that like I said, I'm used to certain things, so it's kind of boring to me. But when I started doing photography, I started kind of having enjoyment to go in more of these like older towns that have the rundown gas stations and shit like that. It just became fun to me. It's like I found a purpose for this type of writing, you know what I mean? Or these areas that before it was just like a pass-through spot. So
where's the photography going to go next?
I think that I'm going to put some of it, not necessarily on the back burner, but I'm going to like make a priority video this year just because I need to get more proficient at it as far as editing and shooting. Still going to shoot as much stuff as I can, but it's very time consuming to do one or the other. And like I said, I'm good enough with photography to where I can take a picture of what I need to. I can get whatever I want out of what I'm shooting. So I'm still learning 100%, but I'm confident enough to always be able to walk in any situation and get the shot that I was expecting to get. You know what I'm saying? So that's a big hurdle for a lot of photographers. So
you are very multi-diverse in your art.
Yeah.
Painting, airbrushing, portraits, bikes, helmets, photography, all that kind of stuff. Do you have a favorite art-related moment or thing that's happened to you because of your art?
Every time I do something, I can pay my rent. That's probably the best part. Because of what I do for a living with the custom paint, I live on a constant roller coaster of highs and lows. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard to say which one's higher because they all come off of a low and they all end in lows, right? Or, glass half full, glass half empty. They all start high and end high. You know what I mean? When you do a job, you go through a lot of emotions of like, is this going to be good? Is he going to be happy? Am I good at what I do? You just self-doubt, kind of whatnot. And so that's like the low. And then you start to see the progress and you start to see it come together and become like what you kind of envisioned, or maybe not what you envisioned, but you love where it's going. And then the customer loves it, and then Instagram loves it. Now you're on this high, like, fuck, I did it. And then it starts over and over and over. I don't know if there's I don't know that I'm as celebrated for any of my art shit as I am for other areas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like in the world, like in motorcycling, or like when people listen to podcasts or follow my Instagram, yeah, I get that shit. I get that kind of adulation. But the world of custom paint doesn't. They kind of act like I don't exist. I don't really get much from that world or opportunities that are kind of that live in that world. Photography is there's such a vast amount of people that are good at that it's really hard to stand out in that. So it's like, for me, it's more of just helping me showcase my life in a better way. You know what I mean? In a more clear way.
You've had a lot of experiences across different genres and cultures and things like that. I mean, from hip hop related airbrushing and doing things or being featured in magazines, or bumping elbows with if we think about people, other people that big names that people know, the Corey St. Clairs, you've interviewed Paul Yaffe, you've been featured with Michael Lichter, you Drag Specialties book. You've never pigeonholed yourself into one genre. I mean, you've had accomplishments across many different things that sometimes, most people, they never cross over. And you've been able to, for the last, 23 years, more than that,
yeah,
have all of these different kind of accolades.
It's kind of the jack of all trades, master of none situation. So, and the other thing is, like, once you kind of become labeled as one thing, breaking that label down and becoming something else usually becomes pretty tough. Once you're a painter, you're a painter. No matter if you're a photographer, a videographer, a podcaster, or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? So, and these are just like, I'm not saying this is how it is in everything. This is just my experience of like my path or my life or whatever. But I think that like the reason why I stay chasing things is because I'm interested in it, and I have a very addictive, determined personality, and if I don't flex it or if I don't feed it, then I feel like the other end of that could be depression and things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like if I take an interest in photography, then what it's not gonna. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna spend some money on some shit, but I think it's gonna raise every other area of my brand or my existence up. Now all of a sudden I found the joy of taking pictures of people and giving them a photo to be very rewarding, even though they might not give a fuck about it. It still feels good to capture somebody and say, you look badass here, dude. Here's this photo. You know what I mean? Or their bike or whatever. The podcast stuff, obviously, there's nothing really art based out of that. It's just something I did because I love to talk, and I love.
I don't know. I disagree. I think there's art in the podcast because, like you said earlier, you're capturing someone's story. Yeah, it's art. A story is art.
Me and you, we've kind of jabbed on this a little bit back and forth over time, but I want to write and I want to create things that, that I think that video could be the medium or or whatever. It could be the format to kind of express this thing that's not quite a full thought yet, but it's a feeling. I want to make something that can truly, that people can truly benefit, like, and enjoy, and both kind of cross all the T's and dot all the I's of paying homage to whether it's the history of painting or motorcycling, the inspire people to do more. Like, I want to create things, and I think that it's going to be through video at some point. I don't know when, but I don't know. I really don't get it. I don't get myself sometimes. I add a lot of shit onto my plate all the time, and I get overwhelmed quite a bit, and I try to have to backtrack and whatnot, but there's also something to be said about always like evolving, you know what I mean? And I don't ever feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over again, even though it might look like it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that's the artist side. I think that, as an artist, you're never. I think that most artists are probably never satisfied. They want to keep moving and they want to keep exploring their art, whatever that is, whether that's writing, painting, writing, making video productions and things like that. It's all art, capturing stories. And I think there's art in literally everything that we do. And that's what I like about being on Four for the Road, is getting to interact with all these different people and see what their art is. That's what I dig.
No, I mean, that's the thing about like conversation. I mean, I could honestly tell you that if it wasn't for doing a podcast and talking to many different people, that I don't know that I definitely would not be the person I am today, because I feel I look at like conversations and friendships and things like that as like opportunities to grow and gain perspective and become more enlightened, even if like who the person is I don't agree with or much care about them. At least I gain perspective on the way they see the world. You know what I mean? It adds to the Rolodex of thoughts and ideas and shit. So I don't know, man. Sometimes I feel like I'm just floating through this world aimlessly, and and other times I feel like I'm on a very strict path. I think this year I feel like I'm on a path more than I have ever felt. But I'm really just trying to wrangle in my imagination and my just wanderlust and all these other things that kind of keep pulling me in a lot of different directions.
I think we're gonna title this episode "Jace Looks at 40."
Yeah, this is Jace at 40 something. At the same time, man, I feel like the bikes that I'm painting right now are definitely some of the best ones I've ever done. I feel like I'm at the height of that career, and it's something to be said about like not having the same enthusiasm for it as much as I have for photography or videography or creating events. Like there's just so much that I want to do. And, I am 40 years old. And so there is that like, well, fuck, if, I have the energy now, like I don't want to wait till I'm 50 and then I don't have the energy, or 60 and I don't have the energy. I have the energy. I have a little bit of a following, a little bit of people know who I am enough to where I can make shit happen. So I'm trying to make shit happen.
Are you saving stuff? And have you saved stuff in the past from things that you've done, whether that's podcast, arts, awards, magazines, like whatever, like, for people that don't know, like they have never listened to your backstory stuff. Like, I mean, you've been, you grew up kind of helping your dad, like sand cars in the beginning and stuff like that. And then you've been around painting and you rubbed elbows or worked for some really big Rick Fairless and things like that, some really big names. And are you keeping stuff from that? So when you are 50, 60 years old, like you can look back on that?
I mean, I got magazines and plaques and things like that. I've never really been much of a bike show guy as far as winning awards. And that might just mean that I've never had cool enough bikes to win awards. But I mean, I have a couple of,
but not even necessarily awards, just even like just mementos from like things that you've done, whether it's a T-shirt from somewhere you were or something you collected from being around somebody.
I'm a very sentimental guy, so like I have lots of shit like that. But as far as it being relevant for someone else to see, like if I see it of like that was Jace's fucking sunglasses he got at Key West one time. Like, no, I don't have shit like that. You know what I mean? So. Did you get sunglasses in Key West?
I
did, and I lost them in Iowa, so I'm pretty fucking pissed. I mean, I don't know. It was just kind of a fun day, and that kind of those glasses reminded me of that experience of being at Key West with those guys, and I don't know. I was just kind of bummed out to lose them.
Is he going to do the same thing this year? Do a ride to Key West after the camp out?
Well, first off, Craig's stealing our idea. That was me and Big Trouble that came up with the Key West thing.
I'm not surprised to hear that about Craig.
We did that because Big Trouble's a good friend of mine, and he's also a great listener. So he's kind of like my shrink sometimes when I need one. And so getting away with him, and also I've been trying to push Trouble to ride a little bit further and do more miles, which he's completely capable of. But we come to find out that he's just been surrounded by a lot of guys that ride like assholes all the time. And he's just trying to cruise, you know what I mean? He's not trying to fucking balls to the wall everywhere he goes. So that's one of my goals. I want to do a real trip with Trouble, like a real cross country style trip. And that's kind of the other thing, man. Like, not that like wrapping up the 48 states with my closest friends is the end, but it also, it's the end of one specific thing, but it's also like, I think Jaden said this at one point in time. He's like, he's looking forward to being able to share some of those same trips with some other guys now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we have our core group of guys, but I mean, we have a fucking shit ton of friends, man. Like real friends, people that I would call friends, not just acquaintances and whatnot. So,
and something that you've hit on before too, in your podcast, like when you talk about sponsors, you represent sponsors and you work with sponsors who represent the motorcycle community, companies, brands, things like that actually give back to the community. And I think that's something that's been important. And I think something that, maybe 10 years ago wasn't as prevalent. It was big brand, big name, mass appeal, things like that. And I think, people like yourself and others have really kind of pushed these brands forward, if that makes sense. And really, not that these, how the fuck am I trying to say it? I guess, as cheesy as it sounds, like brands for the people, right? Like you see these guys that are putting on stunt shows, they're hosting events, they're giving giveaways and stuff like that for campouts. I think that's something that's really cool. It's a breath of fresh air. To see in the industry, like Lexan does so much for actual riders. I think Mark's fucking gay, and I wish he would. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. He's good.
Yeah. Well, no, that's one of the things. We've, the thing about like, making, like, when brands make quite a bit of money, and then, which, to be clear, like, who am I to tell anybody how to spend their money, right? And they can spend it however they want. But I choose to spend my money with the brands that I see that are making money out the industry, but still putting something back. And it might not be a financial back. It could just be an opportunity back, right? For instance, when you go to Sturgis, you see Legend Suspension there, right? And then you see all the riders and the people they bring out to put on events there. And then they're sponsoring events. And then there's just a lot going on. You don't see Olin's there. Now, Olin's has a great suspension. And I'm not saying that they're not good. You see Olin's at a little 10x10 booth, very, very, very poorly represented by their brand there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's
absolutely.
Okay, well, like, they're just here to monetize off of this. They're not here to create things for this industry, right? And so with a lot more brands going internet based, what's the point of going and setting up a booth in Sturgis now if they can't fulfill their orders online, they can't do this? Well, then without all the vendors and shit like that, Sturgis could die, or at least this version of Sturgis could die, And some people were like, "Oh, good." I'm like, "Well, man, the reason to go to Sturgis at this time is because all these brands are here, which bring all these people, and it's a melting pot of all this stuff. If you take away all the vendors and all that shit, you're still gonna have people that want to go and ride, but it's not going to be the same experience, right? So, there's just a lot to be, to look at. And one of the things I've always said, and I hate to use the brand name, so I won't, but there's been brands within our motorcycle scene that have become multi-millionaire, $1 million brands, right? That sponsor nobody, that host no events, that sponsor no events. They literally just drop something every week for you to buy, and then they go spend more money on shit that has nothing to do with the motorcycle industry, right? And to me, it's like I said, do what you want with your money. Well, since they go buy Rolls Royces and shit, I choose not to spend money on that place anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would rather see them roll up on their Rolls Royce to Sturgis and be a sponsor of this bike show or this stunt event, or throw their own event there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
It blows my mind how easy, I don't make that much money, but how easy it is for me to create events for people to come to. And I make nothing on them. I mean, I make money at my camp out by selling t-shirts, right? So if I can do it, then why can't this multi-million-dollar company do it? You know what I mean?
I think it's the same thing with, Harley dealers, Harley dealerships, the stealerships, and kind of, we all know the jokes and all that stuff. But again, because it's kind of in my backyard, you look at somebody like House of Harley, like, yeah, they're the Harley dealership. I get it, but they've surrounded themselves and brought people on that really understand the current industry, the current scene, the current riders, and not just in Wisconsin, but across the U.S. And that's why, I think that they branch out a little bit more. Tommy was a huge part of that. But they have people like Alex and Ian. Jace was a huge part of that. And then they have, Alex is obviously the most handsome Harley employee that's ever lived. And they've gotten it, for all the jokes about dealerships, House of Harley and others. I'm just using them as an example because they're in my backyard. They've gotten it. And I would love to see more dealerships that get it like that.
Well, the good thing about that is that there are dealerships that do get it, and you can just go buy your shit from that dealership.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's kind of a different situation, similar but different, because it's not one brand. There's 700 something dealers in America or something like that.
A lot. So,
but I mean, so like I said, I try to work with brands that I feel like, that care about my opinion. That's the main thing. You know what I mean? That I can sit down with whoever makes decisions within that brand, and they can tell me, before I even take them on as a sponsor, like, I know their values, what they want to do with their brand, where they want to take it, and I get to decide whether or not I feel like I can help them get there, or I can help them reveal what it is that they need in their brand. You know what I mean? So it's a different type of partnership, and that's why I think that some of the brands that we work with, they stay with us for, pretty much ever. You know what I mean? Because we have such a great relationship, and they make products that I use every time I ride, and it's like it's a no-brainer at that point. So
yeah. Well, we're at 2 hours. I'm gonna cut it off here because I have to pee, and it seems like a good stopping spot. But I said I'll be out there in a couple of weeks for work. I want to make T-Bar Tuesday. I want to come out to the bike night and stuff like that. So that'll be actually in Dallas, right? Where you guys do that? It's still in Dallas.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's real close to where you're going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to that and stuff like that, and hopefully get to see you in Milwaukee, Wisconsin this year. Are you coming out for the 120th or no?
No.
He's like, nah, fuck no.
No, our trip is the same time as that, but we won't be able to make it there and fulfill all the states and shit we got to do. So unfortunately, I'm missing that. But yeah, it sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and hopefully get a chance to ride up north and meet you guys.
I'll come to the 150th
across Superior and show you some good spots for some of those photography skills in Superior.
What? So 30 years from now, what's that? 70? Yeah, I'm gonna ride to the 150th anniversary.
God, you'll be 70 in 30 years? God, that's not that far away. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yep, 70 years old.
All right, dude. Well, I appreciate your time so much today. Thank you for doing this for us.
No problem,
and obviously, look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, dude. Good to see you.
All right, dude.
We'll talk to you later.
See you.